Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to your AEW Dynamite review and your AEW Dynamite post-show, man. And there is a lot to talk about in today's episode. We hear from current AEW World Champion MJF. We also hear from new number one contender to the AEW World title, Kenny Omega. We also hear from Don Callis and the Don Callis family as well. We got some new matches added to this weekend's Dynasty. We also see Will Ospreay as well. We also hear about, like I mentioned, MJF and Kenny Omega, and pretty much more matches lined up for Dynasty. We also hear from Chris Jericho as well. Obviously, Chris Jericho returned to Dynamite last week, so we hear from Jericho tonight as well on Dynamite, and we'll talk about all of that on today's episode. But starting off tonight, AEW goes on the air, but it quickly goes to the backstage area, or the cameras go to the backstage area, where we can see the Death Riders attacking Will Ospreay. Ospreay is trying to fight off the Death Riders. Ospreay then is standing in the middle of the parking lot, pretty much getting his ass kicked by the Death Riders, but then all of a sudden the camera zooms and we see a SUV pull up. And in this SUV we see the United Empire, as well as Alex Windsor. Death Riders and the United Empire have a stare down, and all of a sudden an all-out brawl happens in the parking lot. Ospreay says that he used his head this time like Moxley had said, and he went over to New Japan and found the United Empire. Ospreay then says he's going to give Moxley an hour and a half, and all-out chaos will happen in Canada. Ospreay then says that it will be the United Empire versus the Death Riders later on in the night. Some interesting stuff there between the United Empire and the Death Riders. Moving on from that, we hear from Don Callis. Don Callis was backstage. Don Callis announces that Kyle Fletcher is out of action and has vacated the TNT title. There will be a Casino Gauntlet match to crown a new TNT champion, but Don Callis also announces that Okada versus Takeshita fight will not happen. Some interesting stuff there from Don Callis. Moving on from that, we go into our first official match of the night. It's a six-man tag team matchup. It is Darby Allin teaming up with Bandito and Jack Perry to take on the Don Callis family. The match itself, it was a good match. It was a back-and-forth match between both teams. Andrade was in this match, but we can see Andrade leaving the ring. Darby then hits a code red in the middle of the ring for a near fall. Darby then grabs a microphone and asks Andrade, hey, where the hell are you going? Darby says Andrade needs to stop being Don Callis' bitch. After this, Takeshita hits a German suplex on Darby off the ramp. The Don Callis family were trying to keep the pace of the match, but Jack Perry hits a moonsault to the outside, followed by an enziguri. Bandito hits a hurricanrana in the middle of the ring, but Takeshita hits a blue thunder bomb for a near fall. Davis then hits an enziguri. Bandito then hits a hurricanrana into a roll-up for a near fall. Perry then hits a poison rana in the middle of the ring, but Darby then goes after Don Callis, who was on commentary during this match. Davis and Takeshita then attack Darby. They end up sending Darby over the barricade, over the timekeeper's table. Davis then hits a pile driver on Jack Perry. Andrade then ends up hitting the finish, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are the Don Callis family. After the match, the Don Callis family attacked Jack Perry. Andrade hits a low blow on Darby Allin. But the Young Bucks end up showing up. They come out to save Perry. The Young Bucks attack Davis and Takeshita as well as the Don Callis family. Okada is here to save Takeshita. Okada and Takeshita then attack the Young Bucks. But then Okada and Takeshita get face-to-face in the middle of the ring. Don Callis then goes to get into the ring, but Okada and Takeshita both exchange in the middle of the ring. The Don Callis family come out to the ring. They separate Okada and Takeshita, but the Rascals are here, and the Rascals end up attacking the Don Callis family. Some interesting stuff there from the Don Callis family. Moving on from that, we have a TBS title matchup. It is Willow defending the TBS title against Queen Aminata. This was Aminata's first match back since injury. The match itself, it was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Aminata and Nightingale, with Aminata quickly hitting a neck breaker on Willow for a near fall. Willow was trying to keep the pace of the match, but we could see Shida, who has now returned back to AEW. We could see Shida watching on in the crowd. Aminata hits a running kick for a near fall, but Willow gets up, hits a Death Valley driver on Queen Aminata for a near fall. Willow then hits a senton off the apron, taking out Aminata on the outside. Aminata then gets up, hits a diving foot stomp for a near fall. After this, Willow and Aminata both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Aminata hitting an air raid crash on Willow for a near fall. Willow then launches Aminata across the ring, but Willow hits a devastating powerbomb on Queen Aminata, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still TBS champion, is Willow Nightingale. Hats off to Willow Nightingale for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we hear from Chris Jericho. Jericho comes out to the ring. He's holding, it looks like a contract in his hand. He grabs the microphone and says, "It's great to be back on Dynamite." Jericho then is signing his brand new AEW contract. But Jericho then talks about taking risk. Jericho then talks about taking a risk starting AEW. But Jericho says he's excited to continue to build AEW and being one of the best wrestling companies in the world. Jericho says that he loves pro wrestling. He also says the business deserves the best Jericho he can be. Jericho then says he cares about building AEW, but Jericho then is quickly interrupted by the demand. Ricochet comes out to the ring with the demand, grabs a microphone. Ricochet mocks the crowd, but Ricochet then tells Jericho, Don't sign the contract, don't come back. Ricochet then mocks Jericho, but Ricochet says he is the man now of AEW. Ricochet then talks about being the first ever AEW national champion, like everybody actually gives a shit. Ricochet then says that nobody wants him here, or wants Jericho here. Jericho then mocks Ricochet. Jericho says that he doesn't give a shit what Ricochet thinks. Jericho then signs a contract. He also tells Ricochet that you just made the list. And it looks like it's official. It looks like it will be Jericho versus Ricochet at Dynasty. Some interesting stuff there between Jericho and Ricochet. And we'll talk more about Chris Jericho at the end of today's episode. Moving on from that, we hear from Don Callis once again. Don Callis announces that it will be, in fact, the Young Bucks taking on Okada and Takeshita at this weekend's Dynasty. Takeshita then says, okay, he'll team with Okada, but he wants the Continental title. And Don Callis says, fine. Don Callis announces that it will be Okada versus Takeshita at Double or Nothing for the Continental title. Definitely looking forward to that matchup between Okada and Takeshita. Moving on from that, we have a gauntlet match, or at least not a gauntlet match, but the match for the first entrant into the gauntlet match. It is Mascara Dorada from CMLL taking on former TNT champion Tommaso Ciampa. The match itself, it was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between Ciampa and Dorada, with Dorada keeping the pace of the match. Ciampa hits a running knee. Dorada and Ciampa then both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Dorada hitting a Hurricane Rana, followed by a moonsault to the outside, taking out Tommaso Ciampa. Dorada then goes to the top rope, hits a 450 splash for a near fall, followed by a spin kick. Ciampa then hits a vintage DDT, followed by a running knee, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match and the number 1 entrant into the gauntlet match for the TNT title is Tommaso Ciampa. Hats off to Tommaso Ciampa for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we hear from Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. Copeland and Cage come out to the ring. Copeland has a microphone and says jealousy and pettiness. Copeland then talks about FTR. Copeland says that CNC Dynasty takes over as the new AEW Tag Team Champions. Cage says that not only have you pissed off Copeland and Cage, but you also pissed off Canada. Cage says that he paid a visit to FTR's mothers, both Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. Cage says that when he paid a visit to their mother, it means that he banged them both. After this, the FTR are here with Stokely Hathaway. Copeland and Cage are looking on to the entrance ramp, but Roppongi Vice comes out of nowhere and attacks Copeland and Cage. FTR then follows suit by attacking Copeland and Cage as well, and Hathaway ends up hitting a spear on Christian Cage. Now remember, FTR will be defending the AEW Tag Team Championships against Copeland and Cage at this weekend's Dynasty. And moving on from that, we go into our main event of the night. It is the United Empire taking on the Death Riders in a Anything Goes match. The match itself, I thought was a good match. It was a back-and-forth matchup between the United Empire and the Death Riders, with the Death Riders keeping the pace of the match. Alex Windsor ends up showing up during the match. He attacks Marina Shafir. Claudio then hits a vertical suplex on one of the members of the United Empire through a table on the outside. Garcia then applies a Dragon Slayer on Ospreay, but Moxley hits a foot stomp as well on Ospreay for a near fall. Newman and Moxley both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Newman and Ospreay hitting an Oz cutter for a near fall. Claudio then hits a giant swing on Ospreay, followed by, again, another member of the United Empire putting Claudio through a table. Newman hits a foot stomp on Pac through the announce table as well on the outside. Ospreay and Moxley both exchange in the middle of the ring, with Moxley hitting 3 paradigm shifts on Will Ospreay. But Ospreay somehow gets up, hits a hidden blade on Moxley through a table, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are the United Empire. Hats off to the United Empire for getting the win in this matchup. And moving on from that, we hear from Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega comes out to the ring, grabs a microphone. He thanks the fans. Omega says that last week he lost his cool. Omega then talks about diverticulitis, but he also says that he's tired of the sympathy every week. It gets old. Omega mentions the cleaner, the belt collector, the best bout machine, as well as the god of professional wrestling. Ospreay says that this makes MJF famous. What makes MJF famous is MJF talking shit. Omega then mocks MJF, but Omega talks about legacy. Omega says the people deserve a champion that wears the belt with pride. Omega says that he is not the same Omega from before. He also says that he is going to take the AEW title away from MJF at Sunday's Dynasty. After this, Omega is interrupted by AEW World Champion MJF. MJF comes out to the ring. MJF says that Omega is scared shitless. MJF says the fans should be worried because MJF says that this will be the last time Omega goes after the AEW World title. MJF says Omega is not on the level of the devil. He also says that he is better than Omega, and Omega knows it. Omega then tells MJF to shake his damn hand. MJF then goes to walk away, but MJF then goes to attack Omega. Omega was ready for it by hitting a V-trigger on MJF, and then Omega then steals the Dynamite Diamond Ring, and then AEW Dynamite finally, at around 10:30 almost, goes off the air. Couple of things I want to talk about with you guys, man, when it pertains to AEW Dynamite before I get the hell up out of here. Number one, was this show good? No. It's not, man. AEW is in a league of their own, meaning boredom. This show, week in and week out, bro, it is getting boring. Honestly, man. Look, and there's a lot of things I want to talk about, man. I want to start with the elephant in the room. Chris Jericho. Jericho returned back to AEW Dynamite last week. Really didn't say much, but all he said was, AEW, I'm home. And that was it. And then we get to Dynamite last night. He finally, grabs a microphone and actually says more than just 2 words. And, we have Jericho with this contract in his hand. He signs his contract. Looks like he signed an extension or a new contract with AEW, which I had speculated last week. And it looks like Jericho's not going anywhere anytime soon from AEW. But then we see Jericho get interrupted by none other than Ricochet and The Demand. And this is where, when I saw this, I had a huge problem with this. I told you guys last week that it's going to be very intriguing to see how Jericho is utilized in AEW. Who was going to be his first opponent back? How is AEW going to utilize Jericho correctly, where they're not overusing Jericho, where we don't see Jericho every week on AEW television? They kind of space Jericho out. We don't need to see Jericho every single week. But then we get this matchup here between Jericho and Ricochet. Look, man, I'm going to be honest. Is it good to see Jericho back in AEW? Sure. It's another name. It's another guy that really helped AEW get to where they are today. The issue that I had with Jericho, and I made this abundantly clear last week, is how are they going to utilize Jericho? Jericho has literally done everything in AEW up to this point. I mean, we're talking about one of the biggest acquisitions that AEW has ever gotten since their existence. He pretty much got AEW in the doors to TBS and TNT. He was the first ever AEW World Champion, which they also made people realize that last night when Jericho came out to the ring. Their first ever inaugural champion. There's really nothing left for Jericho to do. I mean, Jericho has some matches on the table for AEW if he chooses to do so. I mean, there's Takeshita, there's Kevin Knight, there's other names in AEW that he can compete against. I'm not saying there's not, but the list is thin, bro. It really is. And, Ricochet coming out to the ring, it's like, I felt like it was something where Tony Khan's like, what, I really like Ricochet. I want to put him on AEW Dynasty. How can we do this? And we're going to give him Chris Jericho, which obviously I think Jericho is definitely going to go over in this matchup. I don't see Jericho losing his first match back in over a year. I I just honestly, I wasn't thrilled about it, man, to be honest with you. I think it is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out with Jericho now that he's back. Because I don't need to see Jericho every single week on AEW television, man. You can space it out. Let's not overuse Jericho every single week, man. Because before Jericho had left, there was an abundance of fans that were booing Chris Jericho, begging Chris Jericho to retire, telling him that time is up, it's time to hang up the boots and walk away. And most notably, Jericho has come back. And since he's been back, AEW has been in Canada, where Jericho was from. That is his home country. They haven't been back in the States yet. So I'm really wondering what the reception of Chris Jericho is going to be once they're back in the States. Is Jericho going to get the same reception that he got before he had left, where fans were begging for him to retire or go away? That's going to be very telling, because I can tell you right now, a lot of fans, and hell, even myself included, man, we were just getting tired of seeing Chris Jericho every single week being forced down our throats to be like, oh, here's Chris Jericho every single week. The shit got old. The learning tree, that whole concept, that whole experiment with the learning tree with Big Bill and Brian Keith and Jericho, it just did not work. And people were tired of seeing it, man. It was the same old song and dance every goddamn week. It got old. And people got fed up with the bullshit, man. They wanted something else. They wanted something different. They wanted something new. And we're talking about an individual in Chris Jericho that is known for reinventing himself on a consistent basis to make himself relevant. And the learning tree shit just fell flat on its ass. And now we have Jericho back, which seemingly looks like he's going by Jericho. If you look at Jericho's new merch, it's purple letters with a black sweatshirt that just says Jericho in purple letters. So I don't know if he's just going by Jericho, kind of similar to what Copeland was doing by going by Cope instead of Adam Copeland. I don't know. It's going to be very telling to see what happens with Chris Jericho moving forward in AEW. Am I excited and over-thrilled about the matchup at Dynasty for Jericho and Ricochet? Absolutely fucking not. I can give a rat's ass about that match, man. So, we had that issue last night. We also see Shida, which, again, I was shocked, because I know Shida showed up on Collision, but Shida's been off AEW television for quite some time. But it looks like Shida has her eyes set on Willow Nightingale in the TBS title. Honestly, the other thing that I was confused about was not seeing Mercedes Moné. We knew that Moné was in Canada last week, I believe, and she was supposed to be scheduled for a match, but we have yet to see Mercedes Moné. And I know that Moné's return to AEW is imminently, any day now. So, she didn't show up last week, she didn't show up this week. Is there a chance that maybe Mercedes Moné might show up at AEW Dynasty, with Dynasty also being in Canada? So, it's going to be very telling to see if Moné comes back as well. But I can see her coming back here relatively soon, because Tony Storm is going to be out most likely until next year sometime. So they need another big star to come in, and right now they're not building stars currently on the roster. So they have Mercedes Moné in their back pocket, and that's why they're waiting for her to return. You know, we also have the Owen probably coming up here soon. I would think Mercedes Moné is probably a top name to win the Owen once again this year. So I think, you know, she's clearly on her way back here soon, back to AEW, so there's also that. We also hear from Kenny Omega. Look, man, before I even get into Kenny Omega shit, we see the United Empire, and the thing with, look, I respect Will Ospreay. I think Will Ospreay is great. I think Will Ospreay, since he's been back, it's a different Will Ospreay. Obviously, it's not the same Will Ospreay that we've seen before he had got injured and had to go get neck surgery. It seems like something's off with Will Ospreay. But they bring in the United Empire, and the fans are supposed to know who the hell these guys are. I have no idea who the hell these guys are. I know a little bit about Caleb Newman, who I believe is the youngest IWGP champion. But the rest of those guys from United Empire, bro, I have no idea who these guys are. I just don't. They bring these guys in, and the fans are supposed to just know off rip who the fuck these guys are. I have no idea who these guys are. With that being said, was the match halfway decent? Yeah, it wasn't bad. It wasn't terrible. But at the same time, too, it has its own flaws in itself. I mean, if you look at the Death Riders, bro, everybody is sick and fucking tired of the Death Riders. The shit is getting old. Quick. Really quick. And to a point where, again, we don't know if Jon Moxley's a heel or a babyface, even though he's in a heel stable. And not for nothing, after Adam Page had beat Jon Moxley for the AEW World title, the Death Riders either should have been done, finished, or took some significant time off. We're tired of the Death Rider shit, man. It's going nowhere. It's going nowhere. It's ran its course into the fucking ground. No one cares, man. And Will Ospreay versus Jon Moxley, yeah, I'm excited to see Will Ospreay in a one-on-one match with Moxley. But other than that, I give a shit less about this match, man. Honestly. I'm done. I've been done with the Death Rider experience, man. And the shit does not work. It's getting old. It's stale. It's done. The well has run dry. It's like you're trying to get blood from a fucking stone at this point. It's over. Like, let it be. Jon Moxley needs to go back to getting away from the Death Riders and having a singles run. And just disband the Death Riders, man. I know some people are like, well, what's that going to do for Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta and all this other shit? It puts them in the TNT title picture. It puts them maybe in a tag team division. Marina Shafir can go after the TBS title or the AEW Women's Championship. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's run its course, bro. It's done. And then we get to Kenny Omega, which, dude, my God, bro. By the time we got to Kenny Omega, it was like damn near what? Almost 10:20 at night? This show was supposed to be over at 10 p.m. This show didn't end until almost 10:30. And not for nothing, look, this is going to be a hot take for a lot of people. Kenny Omega is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Hands down. But his promo, bro, is so fucking boring. It is. Great wrestler, horrible on the microphone. That's one of the biggest downfalls for Omega. He is shitty on the microphone, bro. He's no Eddie Kingston. He's no MJF. MJF would take Kenny Omega to school on the microphone. I'm sorry. And not only that, MJF came out during this promo, and MJF couldn't even save this bullshit. It's horrible, man. It's absolutely horrible. And for those people out there, we really want Kenny Omega to win. Why? Right now, you need to feed the hot hand, and the hot hand right now is MJF. Ratings are up right now because MJF is AEW World Champion. As far as I'm concerned, MJF should be AEW World Champion until we get to All In, where we get MJF versus Will Ospreay for the AEW title at Wembley, where Ospreay goes over and becomes a new AEW World Champion. That's what needs to happen right now. As far as Omega winning the belt, no, bro, it does not need to fucking happen. It doesn't need to happen. At the end of the day, it just doesn't need to happen. You know what I mean? Do I think Dynasty might be a little bit better than Revolution? Maybe. But you're also talking about, 12 to 13 matches that are just absolutely fucking brutal. And I can go back to tell you guys this. Some of those matches that we're going to see on Sunday are glorified main events for either Collision or Dynamite, where the matches don't mean shit. I mean, you look at something like Darby Allin. Look, I respect the hell out of Darby, too. And Darby is still trying to glamour for an AEW title shot, bro. No offense. You're a day late and a dollar short, bro. You were a day late and a dollar short. Darby Allin had so much goddamn momentum when he was teaming up with Sting. Sting's retirement match, Sting rides off into the sunset and retires. And then Darby takes a hiatus for almost a year to climb Mount Everest. It's a great accomplishment, great. But it's not the same Darby Allin. Darby Allin has been getting his ass kicked by the Death Riders and seemingly the Dogs. Most notably, Gabe Kidd. Now you want an AEW title shot, bro? You're behind the 8 ball, brother. That's just... I honestly give a rat's ass about Darby Allin being AEW World Champion at this point. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares. I'm telling you guys, man, they could have struck gold. And I've said this shit so many times, man. When it pertains to Darby Allin, they could have struck gold and struck iron where the iron's hot. When they went to, Wrestle Dream in Tacoma, Washington, when Bryan Danielson was still an active talent on the AEW roster and was defending the AEW World title, that match should have been against Darby Allin, not Jon fucking Moxley. You're talking about both guys, and I've said this so many goddamn times. You had two guys from the state of Washington, knowing that Wrestle Dream was in Tacoma, Washington, and both these guys' home state. Bryan Danielson could have been defending the AEW World title against Darby in Tacoma at Wrestle Dream, where Darby Allin gets to win over Bryan Danielson. It's the biggest win of his career, and then at that time becomes AEW World Champion. That's when you should have put the belt on Darby. Honestly. That was the perfect time. That was the time to put the belt on Darby. Darby has done jack shit to get himself an opportunity at the AEW World title. Now he has a matchup against Andrade, and I'm going to be brutally honest. I hope Andrade beats the shit out of Darby. Since Andrade has been back, I said this last week, Andrade has been red hot. The Andrade that we're seeing now is 110% better than the Andrade we first seen debut in AEW. 100%. Andrade's motivated. He's pissed off. He's hungry. He wants championship gold. The last time we saw when Andrade made his debut in AEW, he gave a shit less, bro. It's almost like the goddamn guy didn't want to be there. Now he wants to be there. He wants to be a top dog in AEW. He wants to be a main event guy, and he wants to be AEW World Champ. I hope Andrade wipes the floor with Darby Allin. Because no offense, I can get the fact that Andrade's world champion rather than Darby Allin. I can believe that more than Darby Allin. Darby Allin has done jack shit up to this point to get himself an AEW title shot. Darby Allin's got his ass kicked more now than he's done won matches since he's been back in AEW. And now you're glamoring for a fucking title shot, bro? What the fuck have you done? What have you done? Look, man, I said the same shit about Brody King, and I'm a big fan of Brody King. But Brody King had to lobby himself around Tony Khan to grant himself a title eliminator matchup against MJF for him to get a title shot eventually against MJF. It wasn't like he had to go through everybody else to get a number one contendership. He went right to MJF. You know what I'm saying? Brody King was scheduled to wrestle last night, but unfortunately he's out, I think, with injury. Or dealing with personal issues. Instead, he was replaced by Bandito. And my standpoint with Brody King has been the same, bro. Look, Brody King and Bandito, they should reunite as a tag team and go after the AEW Tag Team Championships. I don't think Brody King is fit to be a single star, man. Call me crazy. That's just my standpoint. Because majority of Brody King's career, especially in AEW, has been in tag teams. The House of Black, the Hellhounds, or the Hounds of Hell, and then Brodito with Brody King and Bandito. Where Brodito was actually successful enough where it actually got them championship gold as the AEW Tag Team Champions. I'm sorry, bro, but if it ain't broken, don't fix it. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know, man. To me, AEW, it's one of those companies where I can understand the aspect of the wrestling that they bring to the table. They're putting on some of the most incredible matches ever. I'm not going to discredit that, but I've told you guys time and time again that AEW has a lot of resemblance to WCW 2000 and All Japan Pro Wrestling. Where if you look at if you guys go back, watch it on YouTube, bro, type in All Japan Pro Wrestling. A lot of the matches were putting on the best versus the best, which is fine. I'm not saying it's not fine. But eventually that gets old when you had the same roster having the same goddamn matches every 6 months to a year. It gets old. Especially with no story, lackadaisical build, where no one gives a shit. Everybody's scratching their head asking, why are we getting this fucking match to begin with? All Japan Pro Wrestling was tournament based. They had 3 titles. The Triple Crown. You know what I mean? That's where Misawa made a name for himself. Vader. Stan Hansen. Kawada. You know what I mean? Like, I've said this multiple times, bro. And yeah, some of those matches over in All Japan, they were banger matches. You know what I mean? And then we all found out what happened with All Japan Pro Wrestling, the mass exodus with Misawa at the forefront of that, and that's what made Pro Wrestling Noah. Like, I get it, bro. I'm a historian when it comes to this shit. I've studied my ass off with professional wrestling. But we can't book AEW like it's All Japan Pro Wrestling. Or WCW for that matter. We just can't do it. It doesn't work. And we all saw if you guys are old as I am, and we all saw what the WCW was going through at the time, some of the most embarrassing goddamn matches of all time. And I was a huge WCW fan. Still am. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna bullshit nobody. I was a huge WCW fan. Mainly the reason why I was a huge fan of WCW is because they gave my boy Randy, Macho Man Savage, another opportunity to wrestle. And he he had some great matches in WCW. Where towards the end of his tenure to WWE, he was just on commentary. You know what I mean? I was a huge fan of WCW early in the early WCW days. Absolutely. Around 95 when it first came around, the first Nitro, absolutely. I was excited, bro. I was happy. I mean, yeah, I was, at the time I was young, I was very young, but I still remember what Nitro was all about. And flip it back and forth between Monday Night Raw and Monday Night Nitro, man, it was awesome. But as the years went on for WCW, the shit just got bad. And the thing with AEW, it's like ass backwards, man. We're going to be in red hot in the beginning to progressively getting fucking worse. You know what I mean? You guys have been around the block for a little bit of time now, man. Let's start picking up the fucking pace here. Honestly, it's one of those things where it's sad to see, man. It really is sad to see. You know, and this overrun shit, bro, is absolutely fucking ridiculous. 10:30 for a promo from Kenny Omega, which clearly no one gives a fuck about, dude. He's horrible on the microphone. He's great in the ring. He's one of the best of all time. But a Kenny Omega promo, you can miss me with that shit. I'm sorry. He don't even hold a candle to MJF as far as microphone skills, and he's not even close. Not even, nah. And MJF had to come out there and save this miserable bullshit, and even he couldn't save this shit. And like I said, bro, for those people, oh, he needs to drop the belt. Why? He's the biggest star going right now in AEW. He's what's keeping the fucking lights on. I mean, I'm just going to keep it a buck, man. This guy is the one that's keeping the lights on and getting people interested in the show. And that's a fact. You don't have to like him. You can probably hate the guy's guts. I don't give a shit. But I call it like it is, man. A spade's a spade. MJF is the guy that's keeping the fucking lights on right now for AEW. Hands down. And once that guy walks out the fucking door, I told you guys, man, it is a wrap for AEW. They better be kissing MJF's ass at this point. Because if he goes to WWE, bro, it's fucking over. It's over. Unless they start building stars now, bro. Because, I mean, if not, it's game over. And my thing is this, bro. If we're comparing apples to oranges from WWE to AEW, which I hate doing, but let's just call it like it is. AEW right now has a time to capitalize on the bullshit right now from WWE and plateau themselves in a whole different echelon right now because TKO is crushing WWE right now. They are in the shit house right now. From the Pat McAfee bullshit, the way WrestleMania is starting to play out, they're in the fucking doghouse, man. AEW can capitalize on the bullshit and just give us solid stories and intrigue into some of these matches and these pay-per-views, and they're back to being pretty much number one or close to it. Capitalize on that shit, bro. Strike with the iron's hot. Because right now, WWE's not looking red hot either. And for those people out there, oh, WWE's doing a hell of a lot better than AEW. No, the fuck they're not. They're not. You know why? Because at the end of the day, WWE is all about corporate greed, bro. It's all about TKO or nothing. If you're not with TKO, then you can fuck off. That's really what it is. It's corporate greed, bro. Look at the fucking WrestleMania prices, man, for the tickets. There was a guy that I saw not too long ago. I think it was on TikTok or something. It was a fan of WWE. It might have been the Brock Lesnar guy or some shit. It was on TikTok. And he was trying to look at tickets, and the ticket prices went down after what CM Punk said by him wanting to lower the WrestleMania tickets. And this guy saw a second row seat available at WrestleMania. Dude, that ticket was over $16,000 for a seat at WrestleMania. Are you fucking insane? 16 grand, bro. I mean, come on. It's fucking insane, dude. $16,000 in today's economy is fucking outrageous. It's laughable. People are struggling as it is, bro, just to pay their bills and just get by. You're charging people $16,000 fucking dollars for a ticket at WrestleMania? You can miss me with that shit. I'm sorry. I'll happily sit my ass down and watch WrestleMania in the confines of my own home. Fuck that. $16,000, dude? Nah. And that's what I mean by AEW capitalizing on the bullshit. Meanwhile, WWE charging people almost $17,000 for a fucking ticket at WrestleMania. All we need from AEW is captivating story. Their ticket sales are great. People can actually afford to go to AEW shows where they don't have to sell their soul to go to one of these fucking shows. The fans just want story. They want intrigue. They want to know the when, the where, the why. That's it. If AEW can figure that shit out, which at one time they had it, in the first couple years of AEW's existence, if we can go back to that and get story and intrigue, you're going to put more asses in seats, bro. You're going to get more intrigue. You're going to get more pay-per-view buys, more attendance. Or maybe AEW can actually go back to arenas and not small theaters and shit where they can only sell, 1,800 to 2,000 tickets? You know what I mean? At one time, they were going to, when AEW first started, they were going to arenas around the country, bro. Now they're going to like damn near bingo halls in South Philly or, these theaters that can only hold, maybe 2,300 people max. You know what I'm saying? We want intrigue, bro. We want interest in the product so people can actually get intrigued with what the hell you guys are doing. You know what I mean? I don't give a shit about Ring of Honor. I don't give a damn about Ring of Honor. Get some intrigue with the show. Give the people what they want. And if you do that with some story and intrigue, you're going to have more eyeballs on the product. More people are going to actually give a shit about what you guys are trying to facilitate here. And that's why I said that Tony Khan and AEW can capitalize on the bullshit going on in WWE. If you do it correctly. You know what I mean? It's not rocket science, folks. It's not. It's not like AEW doesn't have the fucking talent. They got an abundance of talent from across the board. We just want some story, some intrigue, some invest into this company. You know, if we can get some invest into this company or investment into this company, then it's going to get more eyeballs on the product. More people are going to be willing to buy a ticket to watch AEW. More people are going to be willing to buy AEW's pay-per-views. All we're asking for is a little bit of story here. And sometimes I feel like I'm pulling fucking teeth at this point. That's all we're asking for, man. That's all we're asking for. You know what I mean? Just story. Some intrigue on why, some investment, and to invest into AEW's product. That's it. It's not hard, folks. It's really not. People have been saying this shit till they're blue in the face. But that's all we're asking for. And at one time, AEW was facilitating that in the first few years of their existence. Why can't we go back to that? Go back to what brought you to the dance, man. Honestly. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm a firm believer in that. And at that time, it wasn't broken. The shit was actually working. I mean, look at Sting and Sting's retirement tour. It was one of the best retirement tours of all time. His retirement match alone was probably one of the best retirement matches I've ever seen. Why can't we go back to that? I feel like AEW lost how to have fun anymore. They're not having fun anymore. They're miserable. Let's go back to having some fun, man. Some intrigue, some excitement around this company. Let's have some fun. Why the hell not? You know what I mean? And then get fans invested into this company. Get some more excitement. You know, but with that being said, though, I mean, am I excited for Dynasty? Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, AEW pay-per-views, at the end, it's their bread and butter. That's what they do. It's the biggest intrigue of AEW is their pay-per-views, unfortunately. You know, because 9 times out of 10, Tony Khan, you know, doesn't miss with the pay-per-views, even though they are immensely long as hell. And you got 13 matches, where I'm a firm believer that we only need a few matches because I'm a firm believer of quality over quantity. But he'll put on 13, 14 matches that, you know, will run from, 7 o'clock at night until about 1 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? It's insane. And some of those matches I mentioned earlier, some of them are just main events for Dynamite or Collision, but he'll still put it on a pay-per-view because it's a pay-per-view. Let's give the fans their money's worth when a lot of the fans are like, bro, I could have been fine with like 5 or 6 matches and call it a day. That's my money's worth right there. You know what I mean? That's another thing that hopefully Tony Khan would eventually change here soon. But again, that's still, you got a better chance of getting blood from a stone before he actually changes that format for the pay-per-views, to be honest with you. But I don't know, man. At the end of the day, before I get the hell out of here, I mean, Dynamite was okay, but there needs to be change, bro. There needs to be a reset button, some excitement at least. And I feel like I'm a broken record when I say, oh, there needs to be change or there needs to be a reset button, bro. But we need some excitement, man. We need the holy shit moments. That's what we need. You know what I mean? We need to know the when, the where, the why. We need some story. You know, I can't even tell you the fact the last time I watched a Dynamite episode was like, you know what, man, I can't wait till next week's episode. They don't leave you with a cliffhanger or anything else like that to get you excited for next week. It's been a minute, man. It really has been a minute. And I miss that for AEW, bro, and I wish they can go back to that to get the fans excited to watch the product, man. Really. So hopefully sometime this year or even going into 2027, man, we get some more excitement for AEW so the fans can get invested into AEW's product, man. That's all I can ask for as a fan. But I don't know, man. We'll see. I'm excited for Dynasty. We're going to see how this plays out. Obviously, this was technically the go-home show for Dynasty, man. So we'll see how it plays out. Excited for a couple matches on the card, and we'll see how Dynasty plays out this Sunday. But with that being said, though, this is my review of AEW's Dynamite. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic. Peace.